This is disturbing a lot, this power cut. Yeah, so second one, yes, the total net cash flows are positive. We are doing discounted cash flow technique. So we will see whether it is positive or negative. So the third year cash flow is 13,056. When I add all 11,220, 16,587, 13,056. When we add all this, it is 40,863. So when I see the difference between 40,863 and 45,000, I see it's a negative cash flow, right? This is a wrong answer. Is it right or wrong?
Wrong.
So however, NPV rule is not applicable. Third thing, no, the IRR is less than the required rate of return. See, first of all, at 7% discounting, we are getting a negative cash flow, right? Yes. Hello.
Yes, sir. Hello.
So what is IRR? IRR is nothing but the cost of capital at which your NPV is equal to 0. At 7%, your NPV is negative.
Yes.
That means if I take up 10% or 12% or any percent, my NPV will always be negative, right?
Yes.
If I take up 5%, my NPV can be positive, right? Hello.
Yes, sir.
So if the IRR is higher than the company's required rate of return, the investment is desirable. Generally, if the IRR, if at this particular percent, I'm getting NPV exactly equal to 0, that means at this, my NPV will be positive, right? But my NPV is negative at 7% and my NPV will be positive at 5%, which is less than the required rate of return as well, right?
Yeah.
So the investment here do you think the investment is desirable?
Yes, sir.
Sorry?
Less than 5%.
See, if your IRR is higher than the required rate of return. So suppose at 7%, I would have got positive NPV. I would have got the NPV at 0. This would have been my IRR. And at 10%, I would have got, you know, negative cash flows, and at 5% I would have got positive cash flows, right?
Yes.
But at 7% my NPV is negative. So at 4% I will get positive cash flows, right? Positive NPV, right? Just a second. Hello.
Yes, sir. Hello.
So IRR is more than, so what is happening at 7%, which is our required rate of return, okay? What we did at 7%, the NPV is negative, right? I'll write it here. Here, see, NPV is equal to 0 is equal to IRR. NPV. So this is the, suppose my NPV is 10%, right? Right? Let's say my NPV is 10%. At hello. 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 Yeah.
Yes.
See, NPV is equal to 0 is called IRR. The discount factor at which your NPV is 0 is IRR. Let's say that discount factor is 10%. Okay. That means your IRR will be 10%. Now, any project if you want to select, right? How will you select the criteria? So let's say if I'm taking 14% as my discount factor. With 14%, what will happen? Will 14 with 14%, what will happen? My IRR, my NPV will be what? Negative or positive?
Negative.
Negative. And with 5%, my NPV will be positive, right? Right? So,
Yes.
so what is happening here? So, like in my case, in this question, at 7%, NPV is negative, right?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
So will you select a project whereby your NPV is negative? Never, right? Will you select?
No.
So if you will only select the project, okay? If you are, so what we discussed, like 14%, 5%, and 10%, right? So 14% at this rate your NPV is negative, at this rate your NPV is positive, at this rate your NPV is 0. This is IRR. So if your IRR is less than your required rate of return, let's say if your project's cost of capital is, if your project's cost of capital is 14% and your IRR is less than this, are you accepting the project or not? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, if your IRR in this case, which is 10%, is less than 14%, will you accept or not?
No.
Why? At this rate, your NPV is at least you are able to break even, right? This is one at which you are getting negative, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. 10 is 0.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So will you accept?
Yes, sir.
What?
IRR is 10%.
Yeah. So in this case, we are kind of like in the discount rate at which the NPV is equal to 0. If the IRR is higher than the required rate of return, the investment is desirable. If the IRR is more than the required. But in our question, our required rate of return is 7%, and at 7% we are getting negative NPV, right?
Yes.
Just a second. So IRR rule, what? Just a second. I see. Again, we will just discuss. NPV is equal to 0. Okay, is called your IRR. Let's say that is 10%. And that means if some project whose return is more than IRR, that means if here discounting will be more. How come that is? Should the company purchase the equipment or IRR is less than the required rate of return? Yeah. Yes. What we discussed. IRR is less than the required rate of return. So IRR must be lower than. Yeah. So here, if IRR is less than the required rate of return, will you take the project?
No.
Hello.
No.
No. See, no, the IRR is less than the required rate of return. So here, just the example what I'm showing you, 10% is your IRR. Your required rate of return is 14%. If your IRR is less than required rate of return, will you take the project?
No.
No. Why? Because you'll get negative NPV, right?
Yes.
Because if see the IRR is this, if your required rate of return is this, at required rate of return you will be getting negative NPVs, right? Not be able to break even. But if your IRR is more than required rate of return, you can accept the project.
Yes.
But in this case, our IRR is less than the required rate of return, so we will reject the project, right?
Yes.
Understood, now? Shall we go forward?
Yes. See.
So the rule is, if your, like I have already explained you, here IRR, if your NPV is equal to 0, that is IRR. Let's say that is 10%. At this you'll break even. If you're if you're required, so that means if your required rate of return, as we were discussing, NPV is negative. So NPV is always negative if you discount your cash flows above your IRR. That means if you are required, so that means that is at 14%. NPV will be positive if you discount the cash flows at lower rate. That is let's say 5%. Okay. So this is your required rate of return. So if your required rate of return, okay, or if I have to say if your IRR is less than required rate of return. What is happening if your IRR is less than required rate of return?
NPV is getting negative.
At this you will break even. At this you will get negative NPV. You have to reject or accept.
Reject the project.
Reject, right? You cannot take the project. If your IRR is more than required rate of return, that means at this required rate of return, you will get positive NPV. So you can accept, right?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So since the present value of future cash flows when discounted at 7% rate is less than the initial investment, IRR must be lower than the 7% required rate of return. It should be. So if it is not the case, then we should not take the project, right? So we have got the rule here. No, we should not accept the project because IRR is
Greater than
less than the
rate of
required rate of return, correct?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next point. Here, like our IRR was, because our required rate of return is 7%, and our IRR should be less than and just take a new page 2 minutes. Question next one.
Yeah, and even cash flow.
We will do one thing, Samrin, to prove our point. We will find out the IRR of this project. Can we do that? Hello.
Yes, sir.
I'm giving you the chance because see, to like lessen the confusion in this, we will find out the IRR of this project. What's the big deal in this? So how to find out the IRR? Now that's the question. I have already given you the formula and I've already given you the detail about that, right?
Yes, sir. Investment.
So what we will do, yeah, I will explain. So 7% is the required rate of return at which we are getting negative NPV, right? Yes.
Yes, sir.
So because at 7% when we calculated, the present value of cash inflow was 40,863 and our investment was 45,000. So we are getting a negative NPV. How much is the negative NPV? Just calculate. Difference. Tell me the difference. We will calculate and we will prove this. What's the big deal in this question? Why to get confused?
How 41.
Sorry.
4,137.
So this is a negative NPV,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We can find out the IRR if we have a positive NPV as well. So at 7% itself, we are getting a negative NPV, right? So we will now search for some rate that is 2% at which we can get the positive NPV, right? So we shall do the discounting. 45,000 is the initial investment. 12,000 into so can you tell me the answers for this?
Yeah.
11,763.
18,260. 15,076.
Just calculate the NPV for this. So 45,099 just we are getting, right? So this is giving us a almost negligible positive NPV, right? Just 99. So how to find out the IRR? Now we can easily prove the answer. So lower rate 2% plus NPV. Did you write the formula for IRR? Interpolation formula.
Something.
Just a second. Yeah, so we will take lower rate. So lower rate is 2%, right? Plus NPV at lower rate, is it right?
Yes.
NPV at lower rate is what? 99 divided by NPV at lower rate. If I do minus, I'll get plus only into 7 minus 2%. Better, yeah, you can do this and tell me what is the
7
answer.
minus 1% minus 2%.
Yeah, 7 minus 2%. You can take 0.02 plus 99 by almost like 414237. You can take 0.05. Yeah. Now, if you can tell me the IRR, I will directly conclude the answer for this instead of guessing all this.
I'm getting 0.0211.
0.0211 into 100.
2.11.
How much?
2.11.
So 2.11, because we were very near, right? With 2%. So this is our IRR. Now 2.11, 7%, 2%, right? Now we can make the decision. Our decision we can easily make. So what is the decision making? See, at this rate you are getting NPV is equal to 0, right?
Yeah.
At this rate you are getting NPV more than 0. At this rate you are getting NPV
Negative.
less than 0, right? Correct?
Yes.
So IRR is higher than the see, if IRR, this is my IRR. If this is higher than the required rate of return, but this is lower, right? My required rate of return is 7% as per the question, right?
Yeah.
See, if this is required rate, right? Let's say this is the required rate. Now you tell me, under this rate, I can take up any project, right?
Yes.
Why I can take any project? Because I'll be getting positive. If 1% is my required rate of return and my IRR is more than 1%, that means at this I can break even, and at this rate I can get positive NPV, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So if my IRR is more than required rate of return, here my IRR is 2.11 and my required rate of return is, let's say, anything less than this, that is 1% or 0.5, I can accept. But if my IRR is less than required rate of return, at this I can definitely get the break even. But beyond this, any NPV is zero, negative, right?
Negative. Yes.
So I will reject. Accept. And as per our question, my required rate of return is definitely more than IRR. So shall I accept or reject?
Reject.
That's what is the way to get convinced regarding the questions. See, I can directly tell you this rule to follow, but I have to convince you, right?
Yes.
Now, do the next question. What are they asking? First of all, if the company utilizes this, the probability of achieving a positive NPV is. So for that, you need to find out the NPV, right? So we will do the calculation. The probabilities are given. So now first the discount factor is 14%, right? So we'll take this cash flows. We'll take the cash flows. Cash flows are 45,000. 50,000. 55,000. 60,000. 65,000. 70,000. So can you just at the rate of 14% find out the discount factors, and can you just do all that and tell me the cash flows?
Yes.
This is like the previous question. And I'll write the probability also. Just you do this thing and tell me, that's it.
First 6,300.
Yeah. Just a second. Present value factor. 2 minutes. Cash flows they have given. Study of expected annual after-tax cash flows for the project. Okay, annual after-tax. 14% is the hurdle rate. Company utilizes 14%. Okay. Achieving a positive NPV. So 20, 10, 10. Okay. What is the factors you've got?
6,300.
60?
300.
6. 60. That means you
40 on
60.
45,000
This
and
is
14.
this is 45,000.
Yes. 14%.
Yeah, 14%.
We have to deduct this amount from 45,000.
No, discounting.
No, only then 6,300.
6,300. How come? 1 by 1.14 is 0.8771 into 45,000. 39,473, right? So 10% probability we got this much money, correct? Hello?
Yes, sir.
We have to get this one. We have to get, the 2 lakh investment what we have done.
Okay.
So second year, 0.7694. Third year, 0.6749. Fourth year, 0.5920. Fifth year, 0.5193. So 50,000. So this is probability 20.
So the 14% means 1 divided by
Just a second. 1 by 1.14.
1,4.
Yeah. 42,317. Probability is 30%. 60,000 into 0.5920. 20%. So just a second. Two minutes. Huh? So probability 3.433 they are giving. We'll take annuity factor. What is this question? Annual. Okay. Just a second. See, we have to understand the question. The question says, don't do this, please. I get the question. What the question is on. Company, I'm just saying, company is analyzing a 200,000 equipment investment